What if time wasn't something you checked on your phone, but a living, breathing force woven into the fabric of the universe? Long before clocks or digital calendars, ancient civilizations looked to the skies and the earth to measure time with breathtaking precision. These weren't just tools, they were masterpieces of human ingenuity, mapping the cosmos and guiding entire societies. Think about it. The Mayans predicted celestial events centuries in advance, while the Egyptians aligned their pyramids with the stars. These calendars held secrets that reveal how our ancestors understood life, the universe, and their place within it. Today, we're diving deep into the mysteries of these extraordinary systems, uncovering the brilliance of ancient minds and the timeless wisdom they left behind. Stick around, because what you're about to discover might just change how you see time itself. Imagine living in a world where knowing when to plant your crops or when the floods would come meant the difference between survival and starvation. That was the reality for ancient civilizations, and their calendars weren't just tools, they were lifelines. Take the Egyptians, for example. Their entire society revolved around the Nile's annual flooding, which left behind rich, fertile soil. Without their sophisticated calendar tracking the flood cycles, farming would have been a gamble. They didn't just mark days, they mapped the rhythm of life itself. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, the Mayans were gazing at the stars, not just for navigation, but to predict eclipses, solstices, and even planetary movements hundreds of years in advance. Their calendar was so precise it could sync with celestial events down to the minute. For them, time wasn't linear, it was a sacred dance between the earthly and the divine. Every ceremony, every harvest, even the rise and fall of kings was tied to this cosmic clock. These systems were more than just practical, they were deeply spiritual. The Babylonians believed the gods dictated the movements of the heavens, and their priests were essentially ancient astronomers, decoding divine messages in the stars. Even the smallest miscalculation could anger the gods. That's why accuracy wasn't just about convenience, it was about survival, faith, and maintaining cosmic order. What's truly remarkable is how these societies, separated by oceans and centuries, arrived at such advanced systems independently. Whether it was the Egyptians using the heliacal rising of Sirius to predict the floods, or the Chinese developing a lunisolar calendar to balance agricultural needs with celestial observations, each culture wove science and spirituality into something greater. These weren't just ways to count days, they were expressions of how humanity sought meaning in the passage of time. The Egyptian solar calendar wasn't just a way to track days, it was a masterpiece of observation and adaptation born from necessity. Picture this: every year the Nile would overflow its banks, transforming barren land into fertile fields. But predicting this flood was life or death for their civilization. So they turned their eyes to the heavens and noticed something extraordinary. The rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, always appeared just before the waters began to rise. This celestial event became their anchor, marking the start of their new year with uncanny precision. Their calendar was elegantly simple yet brilliantly effective. 12 months of 30 days each, totaling 360 days, with 5 extra days tacked on to match the solar year. Those additional days weren't an afterthought, they were sacred, dedicated to the gods, bridging the gap between human time and the cosmic order. What's astonishing is how closely their system mirrored the actual solar cycle, only drifting by about 1 day every 4 years. That's more accurate than many later calendars that tried to correct the same problem. But here's what really sets the Egyptians apart. Their calendar didn't just measure time, it shaped their entire worldview. Temples were aligned with solstices, festivals were timed to celestial events, and even their architecture, like the Great Pyramid, reflected heavenly patterns. Their understanding of the stars didn't just feed their fields, it fed their souls, connecting daily life to something far greater, and their legacy, it echoes through history. The Romans borrowed from their system when creating the Julian calendar, which later evolved into the Gregorian one we use today. So in a way, every time you glance at a modern calendar, you're glimpsing the ingenuity of ancient Egyptian astronomers who first mapped time to the rhythm of the Nile and the dance of the stars. Their system wasn't just about counting days, it was about synchronizing human life with the universe itself. While the Egyptians synchronized their lives with the Nile, the Maya were mapping time on a cosmic scale. Their long count calendar stretches across millennia like a grand celestial tapestry. Unlike simple yearly cycles, this system measured epochs in backtons, each one spanning 144,000 days, roughly 394 of our modern years. Think of it as a vast cosmic odyssey where each backton was a chapter in humanity's unfolding story. What's truly mind-bending is how they wove mathematics and mythology together. The long count didn't just tally days, it anchored their prophecies and royal histories. Kings used it to legitimize their rule, tying their reigns to divine cycles, while priests decoded its patterns to predict eclipses and planetary alignments with staggering accuracy. Take the so-called 2012 phenomenon, a misinterpretation of the calendar's reset point as an apocalyptic deadline. In reality, the Maya saw it as a transition, like the turning of a great wheel where one cosmic age gave way to the next. Their genius lay in the details. While other cultures focused on solar or lunar cycles alone, the Maya layered multiple calendars, the sacred Tzolk'in, the agricultural hub, and the long count, creating a harmonious interplay of timekeeping. They even calculated the Venus cycle to within 2 hours of modern astronomy's measurements. This wasn't just observation, it was high-stakes celestial engineering where a mistake could disrupt sacred ceremonies or agricultural cycles. Yet beyond the numbers, the long count reveals something profound about the Maya worldview. Time wasn't a straight line but a spiral, a sacred pattern repeating yet evolving, connecting human lives to the universe's heartbeat. When modern scholars cracked its code in the 20th century, they didn't just uncover dates, they rediscovered a way of seeing time as both a science and a prayer. While the Egyptians and Maya crafted their calendars around the sun and cosmic cycles, the Babylonians took a different approach. They turned their gaze to the moon. Imagine looking up at night and seeing not just a glowing orb but a celestial clock, its phases marking the passage of time with rhythmic precision. That was the foundation of their lunar calendar, where each month began with the first sliver of a new moon. 12 of these cycles made up their year, but here's where things got tricky. A lunar year is about 11 days shorter than a solar year. Left uncorrected, their festivals and harvests would slowly drift out of sync with the seasons. So the Babylonians did something ingenious. They added an extra month whenever necessary, a practice called intercalation, ensuring their calendars stayed aligned with both the heavens and the earth. This system wasn't just practical, it was steeped in meaning. Every celestial event, from eclipses to planetary movements, was seen as a message from the gods. Babylonian astronomers, who doubled as priests, meticulously recorded these omens, believing they could predict everything from royal fortunes to crop yields. Their famous Venus tablets, for example, tracked the planet's appearances as divine signs. This wasn't mere superstition. It was a sophisticated blend of science and spirituality, where math and mythology intertwined. The legacy of their calendar stretches far beyond ancient Mesopotamia. The Hebrew and Islamic calendars still echo its lunar structure, proving how deeply their innovations resonated across cultures and millennia. Even the 7-day week we use today, that traces back to Babylonian astrology, where each day was linked to one of their 7 sacred celestial bodies. Their calendar wasn't just a tool, it was a bridge between human life and the cosmos, a reminder that time itself was woven into the fabric of the divine. While the Babylonians focused on the moon and the Egyptians on the sun, ancient China's astronomers achieved something extraordinary. They merged both. Their lunisolar calendar didn't just track days, it harmonized celestial rhythms with the Earth's seasons, creating a guide so precise it shaped farming, festivals, and philosophy for thousands of years. At its heart were the 24 solar terms, each a poetic snapshot of nature's changes, from awakening of insects, signaling spring's arrival, to great cold marking winter's peak. These weren't arbitrary labels, they were lifelines for farmers, telling them exactly when to plant rice or harvest wheat, turning the calendar into a dialogue between heaven and earth. What's fascinating is how deeply this system intertwined science with cosmology. The Chinese zodiac, with its 12 animal signs, wasn't just folklore, it reflected a belief that time pulsed with cosmic energy, influencing everything from personal fate to agricultural luck. Emperors consulted it to plan wars, while villagers used it to time weddings. Even today, celebrations like Lunar New Year hinge on this ancient clock, proving its enduring power. But the real genius lay in its flexibility. Unlike rigid solar or lunar calendars, China's system adapted. Every few years, an extra month was added to rebalance the math, ensuring festivals like the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival always coincided with the harvest moon. This wasn't just practicality, it was philosophy in motion, a reflection of their belief in cyclical time, where endings were beginnings and seasons flowed like a river. Modern astronomers still marvel at its precision. Without telescopes or computers, Chinese sky watchers mapped planetary motions so accurately their records help scientists today study ancient supernovas. Their calendar wasn't just a tool, it was a testament to seeing time as a living force, one that wove human lives into the grand tapestry of the universe. In India, time doesn't just march forward, it spirals, dances, and resonates with cosmic energy. The Panchangam isn't merely a calendar, it's a living, breathing symphony of celestial mechanics and spiritual wisdom, meticulously crafted by Vedic astronomers thousands of years ago. Picture this, every sunrise isn't just a new day but a convergence of 5 intricate elements: the lunar phase, the sun's position, the presiding constellation, the alignment of planets, and the division of time into smaller, sacred increments. Together, these don't just mark hours, they reveal the universe's hidden rhythms, guiding everything from temple rituals to wedding dates even today. What sets the Panchangam apart is its precision. While Western calendars might highlight a full moon, this system pinpoints the exact moment the moon enters a specific constellation, like a celestial fingerprint. Take the festival of Diwali. It doesn't fall on a fixed date but aligns with the new moon in the month of Kartika, when the stars whisper that darkness is ripe for conquering by light. Farmers, astrologers, and families still consult the Panchangam to choose auspicious moments, proving ancient science isn't folklore but a functional compass for life. Behind this lies a staggering feat of mathematics. Vedic scholars calculated planetary motions with such accuracy that their tables predicted eclipses centuries in advance, all without telescopes. Their concept of yoga, not the physical practice but a precise celestial angle between sun and moon, shows how they saw time as a web of interconnected forces. Even their smallest unit, the Karana, splits the lunar day in two, revealing a granularity of thought that rivals modern astronomy. Yet the Panchangam's true power isn't just in its calculations, it's in its philosophy. Time here isn't linear but cyclical, mirroring the Hindu belief in rebirth and renewal. A festival isn't just a date, it's a reunion with the divine rehearsed across millennia. When a priest today chants hymns time to planetary positions, he's not following tradition, he's stepping into a river of knowledge that has flowed unbroken since the dawn of civilization. This isn't just timekeeping, it's time made sacred. The early Romans didn't just count days, they wrestled with time itself, and their first calendar was a messy 10-month scramble that left winter as a forgotten blank space. Imagine a year where December simply ended with no January or February to follow. Farmers had no way to plan for planting, and festivals drifted out of sync with the seasons. Chaos ruled until politics and astronomy collided to rewrite history. Enter Julius Caesar, who, after consulting Egyptian scholars, unleashed a revolution not with a sword but with a sunbeam. His Julian calendar tossed out lunar confusion in favor of solar precision, dividing the year into 365 days with an extra day added every 4 years. That leap year tweak wasn't just clever math, it was a cosmic correction, syncing human affairs with the sun's unwavering rhythm. But here's where it gets fascinating. Caesar's reform wasn't just about accuracy, it was about power. By renaming Quintilis to July after himself, he stamped authority onto time itself, turning the calendar into a political manifesto. Later emperors followed suit, with August claiming its own month. Yet for all its brilliance, the Julian system wasn't perfect. Over centuries, that tiny extra leap day every 4 years added up, throwing dates off by nearly 2 weeks. That's when the Catholic Church stepped in. By the 16th century, Easter was drifting further from spring, and Pope Gregory XIII demanded a fix. The Gregorian calendar refined Caesar's model, dropping leap years in century years not divisible by 400, a tweak so precise it won't need adjustment for over 3,000 years. What began as a Roman ruler's gamble became the world's timekeeper, governing everything from stock markets to school schedules. Yet beneath these reforms lies a deeper truth: calendars aren't just tools. They're cultural battlegrounds where science meets sovereignty, where emperors and popes etched their legacies into the very fabric of time. Every time you scribble a date, you're touching the echoes of Caesar's ambition, proof that how we measure time is never just about numbers, but about who gets to name the days. High in the Andes, where the air thins and the stars blaze with unmatched clarity, the Inca civilization turned mountains into celestial clocks. Without written records, they encoded their wisdom in stone lines of towering pillars called sucancas, positioned to catch the first and last rays of the sun during solstices and equinoxes. These weren't just markers, they were portals where heaven met earth, their shadows stretching like divine fingers across the landscape to announce the turning of seasons. For the Inca, time was inseparable from the land and the sky. Their calendar wasn't scribbled on parchment, but etched into the very terrain they worshipped. Take the sacred site of Machu Picchu. Its Intihuatana stone, often called the hitching post of the sun, was precision carved to align with the December solstice. As sunlight struck it at dawn, the Inca knew the sun god Inti had begun his return journey, promising longer days and the rebirth of crops. This was timekeeping as communion, a dialogue between farmers, priests, and the cosmos. But the genius of their system lay in its simplicity. Unlike complex mathematical models, the Inca relied on observable astronomy. Pillars on hilltops near Cusco framed the sunrise during key dates, signaling when to plant potatoes or harvest quinoa. Festivals like Inti Raymi, the Sun Festival, weren't just celebrations but vital resets, ensuring the empire remained in harmony with celestial cycles. Even their road system, stretching thousands of miles, may have doubled as a solar observatory, with way stations marking astronomical events. What's haunting is how much we've lost. Spanish chroniclers dismissed their idolatrous pillars, toppling many. Yet the stones that remain whisper secrets, proof of a civilization that didn't just track time but wove it into the fabric of daily life. The Inca didn't need written records. Their calendar was alive in the tilt of a sunbeam, the shift of a shadow, and the rhythms of the earth itself. Their legacy isn't just in what they built, but in how they saw time, not as numbers on a page, but as a sacred dance with the universe. While empires rose and fell around them, Persian astronomers were perfecting a calendar so precise it could predict the spring equinox down to the hour. Their solar system didn't just mark time, it danced with the seasons, its accuracy unmatched for centuries. Picture this, 12 months of exactly 30 days each, with 5 sacred days added at year's end, all calibrated to ensure Nowruz, the Persian New Year, always arrived with the first breath of spring. This wasn't just math, it was poetry in motion, where the rebirth of nature and the renewal of time became one. The genius of the Jalali calendar, developed in the 11th century, lay in its leap year calculations. Unlike the Julian calendar's straightforward 4-year cycle, Persian scholars introduced a complex formula that added 8 leap days every 33 years, a tweak so fine it kept their calendar within a single day's drift from the solar year over millennia. Farmers relied on its precision to plant saffron at the optimal moment, while Zoroastrian priests used it to time sacred fires, believing these rituals sustained cosmic order. But what's often overlooked is how deeply this system intertwined science and spirituality. Each month bore the name of a Zoroastrian angel or virtue, turning the passage of time into a moral journey. The month of Farvardin honored ancestral spirits, while Tur celebrated the life-giving rains. Even the 5 extra days, called Gathas, were devoted to hymns from their holy texts, weaving faith into the fabric of timekeeping. The Jalali calendar's legacy stretches far beyond Persia. When Muslim scholars adopted its solar principles for agriculture while keeping lunar months for religious events, they created a dual system still used across the Middle East today. Modern Iran's official calendar, a direct descendant of this ancient marvel, the Persians didn't just track seasons, they synchronized human life with the universe's heartbeat, proving that time, when measured with reverence, becomes more than numbers. It becomes a bridge between Earth and eternity. Carved from a single slab of volcanic rock weighing 24 tons, the Aztec sun stone isn't just a calendar, it's a colossal snapshot of the universe as they saw it. At first glance, you might see only intricate carvings, but look closer. Each ring tells a story, from the 4 eras of creation at its center to the 20-day signs circling outward like celestial stepping stones. This wasn't just a tool to track time, it was a mirror held up to the cosmos, reflecting the Aztec belief that humanity's fate was written in the stars. The stone's genius lies in its duality. The outer ring tracks the Zu Pohuale, a 365-day solar year divided into 18 months of 20 days each, perfect for synchronizing agriculture with the seasons. But layered beneath it is the Tonal Pohuale, a sacred 260-day cycle governed by 20-day signs and 13 numbers, creating 260 unique combinations. Priests used this like a divine almanac, determining auspicious dates for everything from battles to births. Imagine a system where your name wasn't just a word but a date, tying your identity to the rhythm of the heavens. What's astonishing is how deeply astronomy and mythology intertwine here. The stone's center depicts Tanatia, the sun god, his tongue lolling like a sacrificial blade, a reminder that the Aztecs believed the sun required human blood to keep moving across the sky. The 4 squares around him, they represent the previous worlds destroyed by jaguars, hurricanes, fiery rain, and floods before the current era began. This wasn't metaphor, it was a warning that time itself was fragile, balanced on the edge of catastrophe unless rituals kept the cosmic order intact. Yet beyond its spiritual weight, the sunstone reveals jaw-dropping precision. The Aztecs calculated solar years with near-modern accuracy, and their calendar could predict eclipses by tracking the sun and moon's intersecting cycles. When Spanish conquistadors buried the stone in the 16th century, they thought they were erasing a pagan relic. Instead, they preserved a masterpiece, one that, when rediscovered centuries later, proved the Aztecs didn't just observe time. They conversed with it, weaving mathematics, art, and faith into a stone-bound symphony of the cosmos. The Greeks didn't just watch the stars, they listened to their silent symphony, decoding a rhythm so precise it bridged the gap between the moon's phases and the sun's yearly journey. Enter the Metonic cycle, 19 years where lunar months and solar years finally sync up like celestial clockwork. Picture this: 235 lunar cycles fit almost perfectly into 19 solar years with just a 2-hour discrepancy. That's the kind of precision that turns astronomy into art. This wasn't just a mathematical curiosity, it was the backbone of their cultural heartbeat. Religious festivals like the Panathenaea held every 4 years, and even the Olympics relied on this cycle to ensure events coincided with sacred lunar phases, blending sport and spirituality under the same cosmic timetable. What's astonishing is how this Greek innovation became a shared language across civilizations. The Babylonians, master astronomers in their own right, had already spotted this 19-year pattern, but it was the Greeks who refined it into a practical tool. Jewish scholars later wove it into their calendar to keep Passover aligned with spring's first full moon, a tradition that continues today. This cross-cultural exchange wasn't just about numbers, it was a meeting of minds where Babylonian data, Greek geometry, and Jewish tradition converged to create something timeless. Yet the true brilliance of the Metonic cycle lies in what it reveals about the Greek worldview. For them, harmony wasn't just a musical concept, it was a cosmic principle. The cycle's elegant symmetry mirrored their philosophy that the universe operated by divine order, a balance between chaos and perfection. Even their architecture, like the Parthenon, echoed this obsession with proportion, its columns spaced to reflect celestial ratios. When modern astronomers use similar calculations to predict eclipses or design space missions, they're unwittingly tapping into an ancient pursuit, the eternal human quest to make sense of time's grand, unfurling tapestry. Beneath the quiet soil of eastern France, a shattered bronze tablet lay hidden for centuries until it revealed the Celts' mastery of time in ways no one expected. The Coligny calendar, painstakingly reconstructed from broken fragments, isn't just a relic, it's a lunisolar puzzle where metal and mythology collide. Picture this: 16 months alternating between 29 and 30 days, each labeled Mat, fortunate, or Anmat, unlucky, guiding everything from battles to weddings. But here's the twist: every 2.5 years, the Celts inserted an entire extra month to realign with the seasons. This wasn't guesswork, it was celestial engineering etched in bronze. What makes this calendar extraordinary isn't just its precision, but its purpose. For the Gauls, time wasn't neutral, it pulsed with spiritual energy. A month marked Anmat might delay a king's coronation or a farmer's planting, while Mat months bustled with festivals honoring deities like Lugus, the god of light. The calendar's interlocking cycles reveal a society deeply attuned to nature's rhythms, where priestly druids acted as both astronomers and intermediaries between earth and sky. Yet the real marvel lies in its craftsmanship. Unlike stone carvings or parchment, the Coligny fragments show meticulous inscriptions in Latin script, proof of cultural exchange between Gauls and Romans. Each groove marking a day, each symbol denoting a feast, was cast in enduring metal, as if to defy time itself. Modern scholars still debate how they calculated their leap months without Greek or Babylonian influences, suggesting an indigenous genius lost to history. The calendar's legacy, it's a rare whisper from a people who left few written records. When Romans dismissed the Celts as barbarians, they overlooked this, a system rivaling their own, where time wasn't just measured but enchanted. Every surviving fragment whispers the same truth. The Gauls didn't just track days, they wove them into spells, turning the passage of seasons into a sacred conversation with the universe. For the Vikings, time wasn't measured in days, it unfolded in nights, each one a thread in the great tapestry of their lunar calendar. Imagine standing on a windswept fjord, carving notches into a rune stick as the moon waxed and waned, marking the passage of seasons with nothing but wood and intuition. This wasn't just a way to count time, it was a survival tool honed by generations of farmers and sailors who needed to know when to plant barley or when winter seas would freeze over. Their year was split into two halves, Skamdegi, the short days of winter, and Notalisa, the nightless summers, each governed by the moon's silent rhythm. But the Norse didn't just track time, they storied it. Every phase of the moon carried mythic weight tied to gods like Mani, the moon deity, whose chariot raced across the sky chased by wolves. The calendar itself was a living narrative, with months named after the struggles and triumphs of their world. Thori for the harsh frosts, Goi for the returning geese, and Einmanuther, the lone month, a liminal time when the veil between worlds grew thin. Even their leap years, added to correct lunar drift, were called Sumeroki, summer's bonus, a poetic nod to nature's unpredictability. What's remarkable is how deeply practical and profoundly spiritual their system was. Rune sticks found in archaeological digs show meticulous tally marks, some even annotated with feast days or omens. A farmer might use one to time the sowing of crops, while a navigator relied on it to read the stars before setting sail. This duality reveals the Viking mind. Time was both a tool and a tale, a way to navigate both earth and sky. The legacy of their calendar lingers in unexpected places. Modern Icelandic still uses Norse month names, and the old lunar reckoning influences Scandinavian folk traditions. But perhaps its true power lies in what it teaches us, that time for the Vikings wasn't an abstract concept. It was the pulse of the land, the whisper of the gods, and the rhythm of a life lived in fierce harmony with the elements. Their calendar didn't just measure moments, it wove them into legend. While other civilizations looked to the stars, Indigenous Australians kept time by reading the land itself, every rustling leaf, every bird song, every flowering gum tree telling a story of the season. For over 65,000 years, Aboriginal cultures developed not one but hundreds of localized calendars, each as unique as the ecosystems they mapped. In Arnhem Land, the arrival of the Wagalak sisters' storm clouds heralding the monsoon marked the beginning of Gudjug, the tumultuous knock-em-down season when winds flatten tall grasses. Along the coast, the Yolngu people watched for the fattening of mangrove crabs to signal barramundi spawning season, while desert communities knew the honey grevilleer's bloom meant emus were laying eggs. These weren't abstract dates, they were living, breathing relationships between people and place. The brilliance of these systems lies in their fluidity. Unlike fixed Gregorian months, Aboriginal seasons stretch or contract based on nature's cues, sometimes lasting just 3 weeks, other times extending across months. The Daharal calendar near Sydney recognizes 6 seasons, including the orchid season, when certain flowers lure pollinators, while the Noongar people of southwest Australia celebrate 13 distinct phases like Makuru, the time of year when whales migrate and fungi emerge after rains. Each calendar is a masterclass in hyperlocal observation, refined across generations through songlines and oral tradition. What Western science might call phenology, tracking nature's rhythms, Aboriginal cultures understood as sacred knowledge. Elders teach that seasons aren't just environmental shifts but cosmic conversations. When the Tiwi people see kapok trees flowering, they know it's time to hunt crocodiles laying eggs in sandy banks. The Kulin nations interpret the lyra bird's courtship dance as a signal to harvest yam daisies. This wisdom represents more than survival. It's a philosophy where time isn't owned but shared with all living things. Modern ecologists now recognize these calendars as some of the most sophisticated environmental models ever created. Researchers collaborating with indigenous communities have found that Aboriginal seasonal predictions often align precisely with satellite data on rainfall and temperature. In an era of climate uncertainty, this ancient practice offers something revolutionary. A calendar that doesn't fight nature's variability but embraces it, inviting us to listen as closely to the earth as our ancestors once did. When the moon slipped into shadow or Mars blazed brighter than usual, Mesopotamian scribes didn't just take notes, they decoded messages from the gods. Their lunar calendar was more than a timekeeping tool. It was a divine hotline where every celestial event carried cosmic significance. Picture this: priests huddled atop ziggurats, scanning the night sky not for beauty but for omens, meticulously etching their observations onto clay tablets that would outlast empires. A sudden eclipse that could spell doom for a king, Jupiter rising in a certain constellation, a sign to launch a military campaign. For them, the stars weren't just points of light, they were a celestial script, and decoding it meant survival. What set the Mesopotamians apart was their relentless precision. They didn't just notice planetary patterns, they quantified them, tracking Venus's 8-year cycle and lunar eclipses with such accuracy that their records still astonish astronomers today. The famous Venus tablet of Amasajuka, dating back to the 17th century BCE, logs the planet's movements so meticulously that modern scientists use it to refine dates for ancient events. This wasn't stargazing, it was data science avant la lettre, where myth and math walked hand in hand. Yet their true genius lay in synthesis. While other cultures saw omens as random divine whims, Mesopotamian scholars systematized them, creating sprawling omen libraries like the Enuma Anu in Lil. A single tablet might detail 60 celestial signs and their earthly consequences, from market crashes to invading armies. Kings employed entire teams of astrologer priests who advised everything from tax policies to marriage alliances based on planetary alignments. Imagine a world where your ruler's decisions hinged on whether Mercury was retrograde, a blend of statecraft and cosmic faith that feels eerily modern. Their legacy rippled across continents. Babylonian eclipse tables found their way to Greek astronomers like Hipparchus, while their zodiac, originally a way to mark the moon's path, evolved into the 12-sign system we recognize today. Even the concept of dividing the sky into 360 degrees, that traces back to their base 60 math. The Mesopotamians didn't just invent astrology, they gave the ancient world a language to bridge heaven and earth, proving that timekeeping could be as much about prophecy as it was about planets. High atop the Himalayas, where the air is thin and the stars feel close enough to touch, the Tibetan calendar weaves together celestial rhythms with the pulse of daily life. Unlike rigid solar or lunar systems, this is a living almanac where astronomy meets Ayurveda, where planting seasons align with planetary movements, and where even the timing of herbal medicine harvests is dictated by the moon's phase. The system's backbone comes from ancient Indian astrology and Chinese solar terms, but its soul is uniquely Tibetan, a reflection of their belief that time isn't just something to measure, but a force that flows through the body, the land, and the cosmos. Take Losar, the Tibetan New Year. Its date isn't fixed to a Gregorian month, but determined by complex calculations balancing lunar cycles with solar longitude, ensuring it always falls near the beginning of spring. Monks in monasteries like Drepung or Sera spend weeks preparing intricate sand mandalas, their designs based on astrological charts that map auspicious moments for renewal. Farmers, meanwhile, consult the calendar's Karchak, a detailed guide predicting weather patterns to decide when to sow barley, their lifeline crop in the harsh, high-altitude climate. What's extraordinary is how deeply this system intertwines with health. Tibetan doctors still use the calendar to determine the best days for collecting medicinal plants, believing a herb plucked during a waxing moon holds more potent healing energy. Even pulse readings, a cornerstone of Tibetan medicine, are thought to vary in accuracy depending on planetary alignments. A day marked as Dushan, an astrologically potent time, might be chosen for surgeries or starting new treatments, blending celestial wisdom with earthly care. Yet the calendar's true power lies in its adaptability. Unlike static historical relics, it evolves, adjusted yearly by Buddhist scholars using centuries-old mathematical formulas alongside contemporary observations. Modern Tibetan families might check smartphone apps for festival dates, but the calculations behind them remain unchanged since the 7th century, when scholars first merged Indian Kalachakra teachings with Chinese solar divisions. This isn't just timekeeping, it's a bridge between ancient knowledge and contemporary life, proving that some systems don't just track time, they make it sacred. While most of the world races through 12-month years, Ethiopia dances to its own rhythm, a 13-month cadence that defies timekeeping conventions. Imagine a calendar where December doesn't vanish into the new year but lingers for 5 or sometimes 6 extra days, a bonus month called Pagyum that feels like time itself pausing to take a breath. This isn't just a quirky anomaly, it's a living relic of the ancient Aksumite kingdom, a system so deeply woven into Ethiopian identity that even today, the country celebrates New Year on September 11th, or Mescarum 1st, as locals would say, when much of the globe is barely shaking off summer's heat. The math is elegantly simple, 12 months of exactly 30 days each, with Pagyum acting as a bridge to match the solar year. But behind those numbers lies a profound cultural statement. While the Gregorian calendar reformed itself under papal decree, Ethiopia's Orthodox Church clung to calculations tracing back to the 4th century, rooted in the same traditions that built the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela. For Ethiopians, keeping this calendar isn't just nostalgia, it's resistance, a quiet refusal to let colonial powers or globalization erase their chronological sovereignty. What's mesmerizing is how this system shapes daily life. Government offices might use the Gregorian calendar for international dealings, but ask a farmer when to plant teff or a priest when to fast for Lent, and they'll quote dates from the Jazz calendar without hesitation. Festivals like Enkutotash, the New Year celebration, explode with yellow daisies precisely when Ethiopia's rainy season ends, proving how tightly this calendar binds time to the land's natural cycles. Even the famous 13-month slogan, Ethiopia, 13 months of sunshine, turns a quirk into a point of pride, marketing the nation's uniqueness to the world. Yet the real magic lies in Pagyum's liminal energy. Those 5 or 6 days are considered outside ordinary time, a period for reflection, charity, and communal feasting. While others count down to December 31st, Ethiopians usher in their new year with bonfires called Demra, their flames symbolizing the renewal of cosmic order. This calendar isn't just a way to mark days, it's a covenant between past and present, a reminder that time, when rooted in tradition, can be both a measure and a melody. Without maps or compasses, the Polynesians conquered the Pacific, not by luck but by reading the sky like a celestial roadmap. Their star compass wasn't a physical tool but a mental masterpiece, passed down through chants that memorized the rising and setting points of over 200 stars. Imagine sailing for weeks across open ocean, guided only by the way the constellation of Maui's fishhook dipped toward the horizon, or how the Southern Cross tilted to mark latitude. For them, the night sky wasn't just a spectacle, it was a dynamic grid where each star functioned like a waypoint in an invisible highway system. What made this system revolutionary was its fluidity. Unlike rigid European navigational charts, Polynesian wayfinders adjusted for seasonal shifts by tracking the migration of bird flocks, the swell of ocean currents, and even the taste of wind salty from one direction meant land was near. Oral calendars recited in rhythmic chants tied these signs to specific times of year. When Pleiades climbs high, it is the season of storms. When Orion stands upright, the breadfruit will ripen. This wasn't just navigation, it was a dialogue with nature where time and space intertwined seamlessly. The proof of their precision lies in their voyages. From Tahiti to Hawaii, a journey of over 2,000 miles, or the daring settlement of Rapa Nui, isolated in the vast eastern Pacific, these weren't accidental landfalls. By aligning star paths with seasonal wind patterns, Polynesians could tack against prevailing currents, their canoes slicing through waves at angles Europeans wouldn't dare attempt until centuries later. Modern recreations like the Hercules voyages using traditional methods have silenced skeptics by reaching distant islands with pinpoint accuracy. Yet the true brilliance of their system wasn't just in its accuracy, it was in its resilience. Without writing, Polynesians encoded generations of knowledge in mnemonics, turning complex astronomy into stories children could sing. A single chant might compress the movement of stars, the behavior of fish, and the scent of distant islands into lyrical verses. When cloud cover obscured the heavens, navigators relied on T-Lopa underwater lightning, streaks of bioluminescence that hinted at land over the horizon. This wasn't just survival, it was a philosophy that saw time and space as living, breathing partners in exploration. Today, as we rely on GPS satellites, the Polynesian star compass offers a humbling reminder. The greatest maps aren't drawn on paper but etched into memory, where the sky and the sea become pages in an epic, unwritten atlas of human ingenuity. Deep in the steamy jungles of Veracruz, where jaguars slink through tangled vines, the Olmecs built a civilization so pioneering, later cultures called them the mother culture of Mesoamerica. Though time has erased most of their written records, the clues they left behind whisper of extraordinary astronomical sophistication, starting with those mesmerizing colossal heads. Carved from single basalt boulders weighing up to 50 tons, these stoic giants aren't just artistic marvels. Their precisely aligned positions may have served as monumental calendar markers, their stony gazes fixed on celestial events like solstice sunrises. Archaeologists have found ceremonial centers like La Venta arranged along precise north-south axes, mirroring cosmic patterns that later appeared in Mayan cities. What's haunting is how much we've had to piece together from fragments. A handful of surviving artifacts like the Cascajal block with its undeciphered glyphs hint at a writing system that may have recorded time cycles. Then there's the word jaguar motif recurring in Olmec art, possibly symbolizing a celestial deity tied to agricultural or astrological cycles. Unlike the Mayas' detailed codices, the Olmecs left no explicit manuals, forcing scholars to reverse engineer their knowledge from architectural alignments and iconography. Yet their influence is undeniable. The famous Mayan Long Count calendar, with its intricate Bacton cycles, likely evolved from Olmec prototypes. Even the concept of sacred time as a spiral, seen later in Aztec and Zapotec cultures, may have roots in Olmec cosmology. At Tres Zapotes, a broken stela bears one of the earliest Mesoamerican calendar dates ever found, using the same dot and bar numbering system the Maya would perfect centuries later. The real mystery, how a civilization without metal tools or pack animals achieved such precision. Some theorize they used tall wooden observatories, long since rotted away, to track Venus or the Pleiades. Others point to their mastery of water management, their intricate drainage systems proving they understood seasonal floods down to the day. The Olmecs remind us that every ancient calendar we've decoded might be just one page of a vast, lost library of time. Their legacy isn't in what survived, but in the systems they inspired, proof that even the greatest civilizations are merely chapters in humanity's endless quest to unravel time's secrets. In the shadow of towering ziggurats and beneath star-strewn desert skies, a select few individuals held the keys to existence itself, priest astronomers who could read the heavens like a divine script. These scholar sages weren't just keepers of time, they were its interpreters, translating cosmic patterns into survival strategies for entire civilizations. Take the Babylonian letter 1e6 Dups Hachek R Enuma Anu Enlil, the elite scribes of celestial omens who advised kings from palace observatories. A single misread eclipse prediction could topple dynasties, while accurately forecasting a harvest season meant the difference between prosperity and famine. Their scrolls weren't mere records, they were survival blueprints, blending mathematics with mythology to navigate an uncertain world. The sacred duty of these timekeepers extended far beyond calculations. In ancient China, imperial astronomers worked in secret chambers, tracking planetary movements to determine auspicious moments for everything from coronations to bridge constructions. A mistimed ceremony might anger heaven's mandate, risking droughts or rebellions. Meanwhile, Maya-Aj-Kuajab keepers of the sacred calendar performed bloodletting rituals during precise planetary alignments, believing their offerings sustained the cosmic order. These weren't just rituals, they were high-stakes negotiations with the universe where human actions directly influenced celestial harmony. What's striking is how this knowledge was guarded like state secrets. Egyptian temple astronomers passed down precise flood predictions through generations, their methods encrypted in hieroglyphic puzzles. The Druids of Celtic Europe memorized lunar cycles in poetic verses, forbidding written records to protect their power. This secrecy underscores a profound truth. In societies where time equaled divine will, controlling its measurement meant holding the reins of civilization itself. Yet their legacy transcends borders and epochs. When Incan amotas aligned Cusco's pillars to mark solstices or Hindu Jyotisha scholars composed Vedic hymns to planetary motions, they weren't just observing nature, they were participating in its rhythms. Modern science may have swapped astrolabes for telescopes, but the core pursuit remains unchanged: to decode time's mysteries and find our place within its unending flow. These ancient scholars remind us that calendars were never just tools, they were conversations with eternity, written in the language of the stars. When a Mayan king ascended the throne, his coronation wasn't just a ceremony, it was a cosmic event, timed to align with the sacred Tzolk'in calendar to suggest divine approval. Rulers understood that controlling the calendar meant controlling reality itself, bending time to serve their authority. Take the infamous calendar round of the 7th century, where Mayan rulers like Jasor Chan Kyahuil of Tikal orchestrated wars and monument dedications to coincide with the end of 20-year Khatan cycles. These weren't arbitrary dates, they were theatrical displays of power, designed to convince subjects that their reign was woven into the fabric of the universe. The Romans took this manipulation even further. Julius Caesar didn't just reform the calendar for accuracy, he weaponized it, inserting 90 extra days into 46 BC to reset political terms and ensure his allies held office. By renaming Quintilis as July, he etched his name into eternity, a tactic Augustus later copied with August. Emperors knew that tampering with time could rewrite history, erasing rivals' legacies or elongating their own reign. When the Senate declared leap years, it wasn't just about astronomy, it was about who got to dictate the rhythm of civic life. Even more insidious were the intercalary months, added by Babylonian kings to delay tax collections or extend military campaigns. A well-placed extra month could buy time to suppress rebellions or fabricate auspicious omens. These weren't administrative tweaks, they were psychological warfare, reinforcing the idea that rulers held sway over cosmic order. The Aztecs took this further, using the sun stone to justify human sacrifices during 5 empty days at year's end, framing state violence as celestial necessity. But perhaps the starkest example comes from revolutionary France, where leaders scrapped the Gregorian calendar entirely to mark a new era. Weeks became 10-day, decades, months renamed after weather patterns. This was timekeeping as ideological purge, severing ties to religion and monarchy. These systems remind us that calendars are never neutral. They're battlegrounds where power and perception collide, shaping not just how we measure days, but how we believe the world should work. When a ruler changes the calendar, they're not just correcting math, they're rewriting reality. Today's digital calendars sync seamlessly across continents, but something profound was lost when we traded Sirius's rising for push notifications. Our ancestors didn't just want to schedule meetings, they sought communion with the cosmos. The Gregorian calendar conquers time zones with clinical efficiency, while the Mayan Long Count wove celestial events into the very identity of kings. One system demands we adapt to its rigid grid, while the other invited nature to set the rhythm. Consider how we mark seasons, now arbitrary dates on a screen, divorced from the land's actual pulse. Contrast that with Japan's ancient 72 microseasons, where earthworms surface or first lotus blossoms mark transitions so delicate they're barely perceptible today. The irony, modern astronomy confirms the precision of these observations, like how the Dogon people tracked Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye long before telescopes existed. Yet beneath these differences lies a shared human quest. Whether it's atomic clocks or Aztec sunstones, we're all trying to solve the same puzzle: how to fit our fleeting lives into the vast machinery of the universe. Silicon Valley's latest productivity app and a Babylonian priest's eclipse tablet are ultimately reaching for the same goal: mastery over time's relentless flow. The key difference: ancient systems never forgot that time wasn't just to be managed but revered. Perhaps there's wisdom in borrowing from both worlds. Icelandic meteorologists now blend satellite data with traditional knowledge of how Arctic foxes change coat thickness, proving old ways still have value. As climate change disrupts predictable cycles, we might rediscover what Indigenous Australians always knew: that true timekeeping means listening to the land, not just staring at screens. Our ancestors' greatest gift wasn't just their measurements, but their mindset, seeing time not as numbers to crunch, but as a sacred dance where we're all temporary partners. Next time you glance at a calendar, take a closer look. You're holding a living artifact shaped by millennia of celestial observation, those 7 days we call a week. They trace back to the Babylonians, who dedicated each to one of their 7 sacred celestial bodies, a tradition later adopted by the Romans and etched into languages worldwide. Sunday for the sun, Monday for the moon, even Saturday whispers of Saturn's ancient dominion. This isn't just etymology, it's the ghost of Babylonian stargazers lingering in our daily speech. Leap years, that quirky quirk of adding a February 29th, thank Julius Caesar's astronomers, who borrowed from Egyptian solar calculations to keep seasons in sync. But the real marvel is how these ancient corrections still hold up. Modern atomic clocks reveal the solar year is only 26 seconds shorter than the Julian calendar's estimate, a margin so slim it took 15 centuries to accumulate a 10-day drift. When Pope Gregory fine-tuned the system in 1582, he was standing on the shoulders of Alexandrian scholars who'd cracked the code 2,000 years prior. Beyond dates and math, these systems sculpted how we see the universe. The Mayas' obsession with Venus cycles paved the way for planetary motion studies, while Mesopotamian eclipse records now help scientists measure Earth's slowing rotation. Even our midnight countdowns echo Inca rituals marking the sun's rebirth at solstice. But perhaps their greatest gift was conceptual: the idea that time isn't just a river flowing mindlessly forward, but a tapestry where human lives intersect with cosmic patterns. Today, as astronauts sync watches across time zones and farmers still plant by moon phases in rural Japan, the old ways endure. They remind us that calendars were never just tools, they're the fingerprints of civilizations reaching for the stars, trying to stitch meaning into the relentless march of days. Every time you circle a date or wish someone a happy new year, you're part of an unbroken chain stretching back to priests on ziggurats, kings in observatories, and sailors steering by starlight, all bound by the same eternal question: how do we measure what cannot be held? Even with modern supercomputers and advanced astronomy, some ancient calendar calculations still leave researchers scratching their heads. Take the Mayan Long Count. How did they accurately track planetary cycles spanning thousands of years without telescopes or precise written records? Their Venus tables predicting the planet's movements within a 2-hour margin of error suggest a level of observational genius we're only beginning to fully grasp. Then there's the Dresden Codex, a fragile Mayan manuscript filled with glyphs that, when partially decoded, revealed eclipse warnings centuries in advance. Yet whole sections remain untranslated, their secrets locked behind symbols we've yet to crack. Equally puzzling are the Olmecs, whose calendar innovations predate the Maya by centuries. Only a handful of artifacts, like the Cascadule block with its mysterious script, hint at how they measured time. Were their colossal heads aligned to solstices or equinoxes? Without more inscriptions, we're left piecing together clues from ruins and star alignments, like detectives reconstructing a lost language from fragments. And what about those gaps in the Babylonian eclipse records? Their tablets meticulously logged celestial events, yet sudden omissions suggest either lost knowledge or deliberate secrecy. Perhaps certain omens were too dangerous to record. Even the Polynesians, who navigated vast oceans using mental star maps, left no written manuals, forcing modern scholars to reverse engineer their methods from oral chants and surviving wayfinding traditions. These aren't just academic curiosities, they're invitations to rethink what we know. When archaeologists recently discovered a hidden chamber beneath Teotihuacan's Pyramid of the Moon, its walls adorned with undeciphered murals, it sparked new theories about how the city's cryptic calendar might have influenced the Aztecs. Every breakthrough, like the 2022 translation of a Mayan almanac revealing previously unknown agricultural cycles, reminds us that ancient timekeeping wasn't static. It evolved, adapted, and sometimes vanished without a trace. The allure of these mysteries isn't just in solving them, but in the humility they teach us. For all our technology, we're still catching up to skywatchers who carved their wisdom in stone and stars, leaving behind puzzles that whisper across millennia. There's more to find. Ancient calendars weren't just ways to track days, they were mirrors held up to the cosmos, reflecting humanity's deepest questions about existence. Every alignment carved in stone, every celestial event etched into clay, tells a story of civilizations trying to decipher the universe's grand design. The Maya saw time as a sacred spiral, the Egyptians tied it to the Nile's lifeblood, and the Polynesians wove it into star paths across oceans. These systems didn't just measure moments, they infused them with meaning, turning the sky's movements into maps for planting crops, crowning kings, and speaking with gods. What's astonishing isn't just their precision but their poetry. When Babylonian priests tracked Venus to predict wars or Inca astronomers marked solstices with shadow plays, they weren't merely calculating, they were conversing with eternity. Modern science confirms their accuracy, like how the doggone Sirius observations or the Mayan eclipse tables align with satellite data. But their true genius lies in how they blended math with mysticism. A Chinese solar term like Great Heat wasn't just a date, it was a dialogue with nature's rhythms, a reminder that humans belong to something vaster. These calendars challenge our modern relationship with time. Where we see seconds ticking on screens, they saw seasons breathing in harmony. The Tibetan lunar calendar still guides herbal harvests, while Aboriginal fire ceremonies follow ancestral star cycles, proof that ancient wisdom wasn't erased, just overshadowed. Perhaps that's their most enduring lesson. Time isn't just something to manage, but to marvel at. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which of these cosmic clocks resonates most? Is it the Inca's mountain-high pillars, the Maya's long count, or Ethiopia's 13-month dance with the sun? Drop your thoughts below and hit subscribe to keep unraveling history's grandest puzzles. Because every time we decipher an ancient calendar, we're not just reading the past, we're rediscovering how to see time as our ancestors did, not as a countdown but as a conversation.